Well, the college football playoff will soon be down to 4. Soon as in the next 3 or 4 hours, I guess. Texas is in the semifinal. They're starting out as a 5-point underdog to Ohio State, who had, and I don't think this is up for debate, the most impressive 27 minutes of football you might ever see. They led Oregon 26, 27 minutes into the game, maybe even 28 or 29, 34-0 in the first half. It was ridiculously good. So what people obviously want to dissect, of course, is how it is and why it is that Texas ended up with more points on the scoreboard than Arizona State in the quarterfinal in Atlanta. So here's how that happened. In the end, Texas had more points because football's never a complicated game, everyone. It's never that complicated. Texas ended up with more points because they had more skill and by far more talent at the skill positions. In the end, it just showed up. Texas had a far better thrower, and Texas had a far better group of receivers. Arizona State had awful receivers, and the one good receiver they had got knocked out of the game on the now infamous no targeting call. They just didn't have the skill in the end to put up enough points. In the end, Texas had more points because Quinn Ewers was excellent all day. He was. Now, people look at it with a different lens, and I kind of understand it. But if you look at it from a college quarterback lens and not a pro quarterback lens, you can maybe appreciate the numbers that he puts up even more. Texas couldn't run the ball at all. That surprised me. But they couldn't run the ball at all. So Quinn Ewers and the Texas receivers had to win the game. And their head coach all but said, hey, you got to go win this game because we can't run the ball at all. So they did, mostly. Quinn Ewers who's a really good, really good, smart college quarterback. If you look at him with the pro quarterback lens, and a lot of people do, and I see this a lot, and I get it, I do. You automatically think, well, what's he going to do in the NFL? And those throws that he makes in college games don't work in the NFL. They don't. The stuff you get away with in college, this is why it's always difficult to project a quarterback from college to the pros, is because you can get away with stuff in college because your guys are better than the other guys. So it's just, it's a lens that I think people see the ball float and people see him throwing it up for grabs, and it works out most of the time because Texas has good players. And they look at it from a pro quarterback lens, but don't do that. He throws it and his guys catch it. It's kind of risky if it were the NFL. No, it would be incredibly risky if it were the NFL, but it's not. It's not even close. He went 20 of 30 for 322 and 3 touchdowns. He didn't have a forced error. Nerdy Jeff always likes to use forced versus unforced errors. He didn't have a forced error all day. The interception that Ewers had was a good defensive play and a stupid decision by his coach. But he made a stupid decision because his team couldn't run, so some of it makes sense. The pass that was picked off, Texas should have been running some clock, but then again, the argument would be, hey, they can't run at all, so what option do you have? But it was like a lot of his passes. I get it. And in the NFL, he wouldn't get away with them. That was a good defensive play. That would happen often to him in the NFL because the way the ball floats. But he's been really, really good for 3 straight games. I don't even know how that's debatable. In fact, Texas is in the Final Four because of him. Luck also, but because of him. They've been able to win games because of him. They've put the ball in his hands, and he's won some games. The game against Georgia that Texas lost in the SEC championship was not on him. He was really good at A&M. On the road. The SEC championship game was a loss to Georgia, but he played really well in that game. Again, Texas couldn't run the ball. And then in double overtime against Arizona State, he was spectacular. His coach said, here are the keys. I can't do anything else, so throw it around the field. And that's exactly what he did. In the end, Texas had more points than Arizona State because Arizona State's play caller, I'm going to assume the head coach, but whoever made these decisions decided to throw the ball on 4 consecutive downs from the 10 in double overtime rather than hand the ball off to the best player on the field, and it wasn't even close. I mean, there's plenty of stuff to pick apart about this game, including non-targeting calls. But you have the best player on the field, a player that is unstoppable at this point. He had 150 yards and averaged almost 5 yards a carry. Do the simple math. At worst, Arizona State gives the ball to Cam Scatterbo 2 of the 4 downs. I'd say all three of the 4 at least. And they win a game. But they decided that they would throw it 4 times, which makes no sense whatsoever. They threw it on 4 downs. I don't think there's any place in the entire field they should have been throwing it 4 downs, but certainly not at the 10 with that guy in the backfield. That's just crazy. For every time, for good reason, they want to complain about a non-targeting call, you should also turn around and say, what in the world were you thinking not giving the ball 3 times to the most unstoppable player on the field and maybe the most unstoppable player that Texas has faced the entire season? The guy's ridiculous. I told you about him. By the way, not only is he the best player on the field by far and unstoppable, 2 of the Arizona State receivers, their best receivers, are already knocked out of the game. What are you doing throwing it? In the end, Texas had more points than Arizona State because of a non-call on a play that looked like a textbook targeting penalty that should have given Arizona State a first down with the ball inside Texas territory with a little under 5 minutes left in the game. How the hit on the receiver by Michael Taff, on the Arizona State receiver, defenseless receiver, I think it's pretty obvious. How that was, 1, not called in the moment, but 2, not called after replay that's beyond me. And let me tell you the simple answer to that stuff. And that is, again, don't let it overshadow the fact that Arizona State, I believe had Arizona State received the right call in that moment of targeting, I do believe they go on and win.
Hey Austin, Jeff Ward here, and I never thought I'd be in an accident and need a personal injury attorney. And then sure enough, less than a mile from my house, I was blindsided. I was injured. My world was turned completely upside down. I called DJC Law and their team took care of everything. I got the best result possible. Don't just take my word for it. They have over 1,000 5-star reviews. So if you're injured, call 512-888-9999 and get your justice at teamjustice.com.